It seems as if there is only one super creature hiding out here in the mist with me. If the others don't come near, then perhaps I'll be able to kill it one-on-one, Han Sen thought to himself. He did not believe whatever super creature lurked around him would pose too much danger, and even without his devil eye mask, he could use his Dongxuan Aura to sense its presence and see it coming. The only problem was the need to deal with it quickly. If he didn't take care of it soon, it was only a matter of time before the big monster down below would beat itself to death against the doors. The evil eye mask could only enable Han Sen to watch the shadow of the creature. It was a life force, one that seemed to have been wrapped in flames. He couldn't quite see what sort of super creature it was. Han Sen quietly drew his Peacock Crossbow and loaded it with Z-steel bolts. He propped it up, ready for the creature's re-emergence. Dong! The little angel used her greatsword to knock away an incoming shadow. Han Sen did not do anything yet, and he just patiently watched it. The flaming shadow failed in its attempts to attack a few times, and it appeared to be frustrated. So, it gave up trying to strike them, sunk into the mist, and watched the two in return. Han Sen pretended as if he could not see it, rolling his head in a number of different directions to feign inattention. But in truth, aside from the creature, he really could not see anything else. After observing for a while, the flame began to believe Han Sen and the little angel had truly lost their target. It sailed through the fog behind Han Sen and slowly approached. Han Sen continued looking left and right as if he had no idea where it was coming from. But with the Dongxuan Aura that he cast a while ago, he was able to keep an eye on its every slight movement. The flaming shadow came within 10 meters of Han Sen when it suddenly became enraged, and it launched itself towards the mist's intruder. The moment the flame got close to Han Sen, he quickly turned around and used his flaming Rex spike to block the attack while his left hand fired the Peacock Crossbow repeatedly. Consecutively, he fired 8 of the Z-steel bolts towards the foe. Pang! But Han Sen and the Rex spike were rocked away upon the collision, which negatively affected his accuracy. Still, he heard a foreign noise in the mist sound 3 times. 3 of the 8 bolts had found their target. At the same time, Little Angel flew to the shadow's head and brought down the greatsword upon it with all her might. The flaming shadow screamed in agony, seemingly injured by the bolts. Frantically, it tried to scramble back into the cover of the mist. But under the all-seeing gaze of the devil eye mask, Han Sen was able to observe its every move. With the little angel by his side, he took off after the misty menace. The creature had been well and truly fooled by Han Sen, and now the little angel instantly caught up with the monster. She swung her sword like a loon and brought an end to the fleeing monster's escape. Han Sen fired the Peacock Crossbow again, emptying the other 6 bolts. The timing could not have been more perfect, as the creature had just exhausted all its strength in avoiding the brutal cleaves of the little angel's greatsword. Like a sudden streak of light, the little angel shot right past the creature. As she did so, a head launched into the sky, trailing blood. Super creature Mirage Gas Freak killed. No beast soul gained. The flesh of this creature is inedible, but you may harvest its life geno essence. Consume its life geno essence to gain 0 to 10 super geno points randomly. The mist faded, and Han Sen's prior vision of the shelter's walls and gate returned to him. It was only 10 meters away now. The Mirage Gas Freak that the little angel had slain began to fade away. It was strange, like a cat. The head had been lopped off, and that too began to melt away with the body. A life geno essence, one that looked like an orb of solid mist, fell to the ground. Han Sen made sure to pick it up, and after doing so, flew to the back of the gate that had previously barred their passage. Then, he lifted and removed the bolt that prevented its opening. After doing so, he made sure to make a quick escape backwards. Boom! The purple door was smashed open by the big monster. With a loud roar, it marched inside without hesitation. Inside the shelter was a large and beautiful palace, but strangely, it now seemed devoid of creatures or spirits. The place seemed empty. When the mirage cloud totally disappeared, Han Sen's vision became clearer. He couldn't see any creatures. Even the small monster that had been captured by the black tiger was totally gone, and not even its screams could be heard anymore. Pang! The big monster quickly arrived before the grand palace, and at its tall doors, it again tried to open them by throwing its weight. It wanted to see with its own eyes whether or not the little monster was inside. Its strike did not collapse the palace, but as Han Sen watched, he saw the flash of a sword. Suddenly, a huge, bloody gash had been drawn deep into the big monster's hardy scales. From inside the palace, a shadow creature emerged, wielding a steel greatsword and clad in steel armor. Taking a closer look, Han Sen noticed that the armaments were not actually affixed to a person or creature. Despite being fitted in the shape of a human, the armor was not actually clothing anyone. The armor was empty, as if it were possessed. In between the plating of the armor, all he could espy was the flicker of a ghostly green light. Is this a creature, or is it a spirit? Han Sen watched the armored monster with uncertainty. Han Sen thought of helping it out, but he saw 3 other monsters enter from the sides of the plaza before the palace. They were being surrounded. A 30-meter-tall ape, a 4-legged snake, and a winged black tiger all appeared, each from a different direction. The winged black tiger roared and approached them. Han Sen commanded his little angel to engage the tiger. The snake and the ape approached Han Sen together. The ape threw a fist down towards Han Sen, an attack which he dodged with ease. But the force of that fist was such that the ground quaked. The 4-legged snake flung out its tongue, which looked like a bloody whip. It was incredibly fast, and it almost tangled and knotted its way around Han Sen. His flaming Rex spike retaliated with a strike against the big ape's arm, which only created a light scuff. He couldn't damage it. The 4-legged snake was too fast for Han Sen, and it was difficult for him to evade in between dishing out his own attacks. One-on-one was already difficult enough, but now he was being challenged by 2. This was an extremely dangerous situation for him to be in. Pang! Han Sen tried to dodge the snake's attack, but he was dealt a blow by the ape instead. His body was launched away as if it had been fired from a cannon. He traveled a dozen meters and slammed into the palace wall. With his body in a crumpled heap, he spat out blood. The snake and ape didn't relent, and Han Sen jumped away with pain in his chest as they approached. He leapt near the big monster and used his flaming Rex spike against the armored phantom monster. Dong! The armored phantom saw the incoming strike, and it raised its greatsword to block it. In the collision, Han Sen took a few steps back. The ape and the snake managed to catch up with him, and the big monster decided to aid Han Sen in return. It roared and ran toward the ape. The 2 monsters were incredibly loud as they duked it out, every impact between them making a deafening noise. The big monster was having difficulty with the agile armored phantom, but fared far better against the ape. Han Sen cast his Dongxuan Aura to do battle with the armored phantom. It was far better for him to deal with that than to attempt to combat the massive ape. This exchange of opponents was the right move, as it placed them both in the realm of combat they exceeded in. Still, the snake was after Han Sen, and this made him frown. Fairy, I have taken care of you for far too long with no return. It's about time you do something for me. Han Sen leapt out of the way of the snake's razor tongue, brought out the scallop shell, and threw it towards the snake. The snake avoided the scallop, and it fell down to the ground. The lid of the scallop finally moved, and the fairy emerged from it in a rage. She looked at the snake and immediately cast her icy self-buffs and flew directly before it. Han Sen sighed. It was fortunate for him that the fairy was willing to aid him in his time of need and wasn't going to remain her lazy self in such dire circumstances. The phantom armor was still an obscenely powerful foe, and its agility and finesse with the blade was just as good as Han Sen's. Against strength that far outmatched his own, Han Sen had to take advantage of the one area of combat he did have an advantage in: speed. He found an opening in which he could safely attack, so he quickly took advantage of it and swung the Rex spike. It struck the ghostly armor to little effect, so he quickly fell back. The body of the black tiger was like metal, and the claws of its paws were incredibly lethal. It didn't have a single disadvantage when going against the little angel, so it was difficult to presume which one might emerge victorious. The battle between the big ape and the big monster was the bloodiest of all. They were both vitality-based super creatures, and each of their attacks rocked and shook the shelter. They had both been brutally injured as they fought. The fairy was the most relaxed creature of all. The snake was slower than she was, and the tongue could never latch onto its target. The frosty projectiles the fairy cast out only made it slower as well. The fairy threw her little fist out and smacked the snake's face fiercely. Almost instantly, blood was drawn from its hideous mouth. The snake did seem very powerful, however, and it didn't seem likely that the fairy could end its life anytime soon. Han Sen could not deal with the armored phantom on his own, though, and seeing the big monster about to be defeated by the big ape, he became worried. If the big monster fell, it would tip the scales of their battle off balance and they would be unfairly matched. If that were to occur, he'd have no choice but to fall back. Han Sen gritted his teeth and cast Dongxuan Sutra. He turned his own energy into a holy light, and when he found the right moment, he cast the holy light onto the big monster to heal its wounds. The holy light he simulated, received from the rhino, had incredible healing properties. When the cast light reached the wounds, they instantly began to seal themselves up. Han Sen returned his focus to the armored phantom. With his Dongxuan Aura, it was not difficult to use his Dongxuan powers to dodge his foe's attacks. Han Sen did not expect to defeat him in his current situation, but he at least wanted to drag out their fight and buy some time for his other companions to resolve their own battles. In between his evasions, Han Sen took every chance he could to continue healing the big monster so it could carry on fighting the fearsome ape. Han Sen was primarily waiting for the fairy to finish killing the snake. Once she was done, he envisioned a snowball effect in which they could outnumber the others and end them. It's a shame that Little Silver is still evolving. If it was done by now, bringing about an end to these felons and the shelter they inhabit would be easy peasy, Han Sen thought to himself. Han Sen continued using his Dongxuan Aura to scan the armored phantom. He had managed to learn that it was a second-generation super creature of sorts, and it harbored a strange and unique energy flow. Han Sen noticed that the snake was about to be killed by the fairy, but his sudden burst of happiness was snatched away by a stronger feeling of dread. Deep inside the shelter, a life force approached. It did not venture their way fast, but that made it all the more ominous. The life force was horridly powerful. Han Sen used his devil eye mask to take a look, and he saw a flaming red life force arise. Whatever was headed their way was getting closer. Oh no, this shelter has another super creature. Han Sen immediately became disheartened at this worrying revelation. He had tirelessly battled to reach this stage, and the thought of having to flee without a reward was criminal. If the horrible creature joined in the fight, the scales of the battle's balance would be tipped and there would be no way to restore them. But again, Han Sen did not feel right in simply abandoning the fight. As he saw the snake about to be killed by the fairy, he gritted his teeth and ran towards the horrible energy that approached. If he could slow its advance for a while and allow the fairy to finish off the snake, he might have a chance. The armored phantom did not allow its foe to leave so suddenly, and it pursued him. As he continued to evade, Han Sen did not halt in his race towards the ghastly energy. After skipping past 15 buildings, he came to a long staircase that reached for the skies. At its top, a larger palace rested. On the stairs, an elegant woman gently descended. Her body was incredible, and she was around a foot taller than Han Sen. Still, her scaling was perfect. Her long legs led to a slim waist, which acted as a pedestal for the grand boobs that lay above. In the black armor she was robed in, she exuded a presence of power and respect. She was like a panther, a female feline that was both beautiful and cruel. That is the spirit of this shelter. Han Sen now revised his earlier thoughts, when he had believed that the armored phantom was the spirit of the shelter. The spirit looked at Han Sen coldly. She gave Han Sen a murderous gaze. The spirit was dressed in armor, but she wore no helmet. Atop her head rested a crown. She wielded no weapons, either, but her pretty white hands gave out a feeling of lethality. The armored phantom was still on Han Sen's heels, and the way it moved now seemed angry. It seemed displeased at its opponent's decision to disrespect the spirit that was descending, and so it swung its sword with far greater aggression. Han Sen made use of his Dongxuan movements and pushed them to the max. This way, it was difficult for the phantom to strike him. After walking a few hundred steps, the spirit looked at Han Sen with much disgust and disdain as she stepped down to meet him. She raised her fist and attempted to punch her incoming aggressor. It didn't seem as if she exerted much strength, but its speed was as if her fist had teleported. It suddenly collided with Han Sen's belly. Han Sen's body rocketed all the way back down the stairs like a meteor. He smacked into the roof of a building, which ruined its delicate tiling. The armor on Han Sen's armor had many cracks upon it, and there was now an exposed area. Han Sen removed himself from the rooftop with a mouth full of blood. The armored phantom jumped down from the stairs, slashing at Han Sen with the green light greatsword. Stepping quickly, Han Sen was able to dodge the attack. His eyes drifted towards the spirit. She was so fast, he'd have to keep an eye on her. If she was to attack him again, he would have no chance of dodging. Han Sen's senses were powerful, though, and he could predict when she planned to make a move. Now was the time for Han Sen to properly test what he had recently spent much time practicing. The spirit looked at Han Sen and raised her fist. She fired it in his direction. The moment she swung her fist, it accelerated. Han Sen's eyes were not able to perceive how she performed this attack, but her entire body seemed to teleport directly before him. His excellent senses were indeed able to capture the granular details of her movements. With a move of his leg, he slid his body slightly to the side and dodged her attack successfully. The spirit, seeing her fist miss its target, looked shocked. In this small moment, Han Sen swung his own fist at the spirit's belly in a form of payback. But the spirit's body just disappeared as if it had teleported away. His fist was so close, but it missed. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.